Hey there everybody, and welcome to the next sort of bonus video in the updated how to create a social or sharing app playlist. This video is all about optimizing the application. Now you may be wondering what needs to be optimized. Everything appears to be working, it seems to be relatively quick. What is there to fix? Well, there are actually a couple of things. First and foremost, we are using a free Firebase plan. And you can see that just during testing, I've already done 473 reads, which may not seem like a high number, but when you consider that I've only been accessing a couple of pages, that can actually add up pretty quickly. Now, one quick thing to note for this entire series, but also before you finalize your app, make sure you're managing your security, your content, and anything related to the app and its publication in accordance with any and all local, federal, state rules, guidelines, all rules, guidelines, laws, etc. Now, when you go to Firebase, if you click the upgrade button in the bottom left, where this can actually get to be a little bit dangerous, financially speaking, is once you go into a pay-as-you-go plan. So if we click See Full Plan Details, just bear with me for 1 minute, this will make sense in a minute. So when we scroll down, you'll see we have pay-as-you-go or no cost. So when we scroll down, if you look at Cloud Firestore, if we look at document reads, you get 50,000 a day, 20,000 writes a day, 20,000 deletes a day. And then you can see Google Cloud pricing. So in this case, we're going to look at reads because that's what people are probably going to be doing the most of, with writes coming in second. So when we look through, price beyond is 6 cents per 1,000 documents. This may not sound like a lot, but here's what we're going to explain really quickly. Now, we have the page 1 to 5 ratings open. Now, the good and bad is you have to do this for every single page in the app that has the page variable or the data variable added. So anywhere in the app that you see a data variable added, you will need to consider doing this. Now, in this page, we are in the 1 to 5 rating, or the 1 out of 5 rating page. So we have this data variable that we've already gone through making together. When you click it, if you go down here to logic, you'll see when the page is mounted, this logic already exists. You don't need to add it. Now in this case, you'll notice that we are doing this get collection, and then whether it succeeds or fails, it's going to this delay and then going to get record collection. And every time it's setting the data variable to the value. Now in this case, this delay means every 5,000 milliseconds, it's going to perform this get collection, which means it's doing a read. So that means if someone leaves this page open for a day, every 5,000 milliseconds, it's doing a read. So this number continuously goes up. So if 10 people leave this open, if you were to divide the number of hours in a day into milliseconds, you'd find out this, just a couple of users could actually potentially cause your reads to go over the daily limit. When you factor that in, if you want your application to scale, this is not going to be a feasible option that would be affordable. And the downside to the pay-as-you-go pricing, I don't know if you have the ability to put caps on this. If you do, I would highly recommend it, but I would not recommend going with a pay-as-you-go plan until you have fully optimized your app. So I recommend go through your application and in every single page, just as a quick check. For example, this page does not have a data variable added. So I'll show you what to do. Starting at the top left, click on your first page, go to the data variable section and see if there are any. If there are none, move to the next page. Go to the data variable section, click your data variable, and look at this delay here. If you can, you have a couple of choices. First is you can increase this time limit drastically, either to seconds or you could change it to minutes, which obviously 5,000 minutes is quite a bit, but you get the point. You need to find out a good option that will allow a ton of users to access your app. And what this is doing is this is basically allowing the data on the page to refresh. So where it is currently, you'll notice if one person submits an update, another person will see it pretty quickly, and that's great, but it's also expensive. So in this case, you need to find out, do you just want people to be able to click the back button and go back in? Because with this app, sometimes I've seen, maybe it's just with Appgyver, but refreshing may not always be best. So I guess the point here is just make sure you adjust this delay, which is option 1, adjust this time to what works for you, and then you'll need to go to the next page and do this through every single page. Bearing in mind, when you make an adjustment to the delay, you need to save your changes. And do that for every page on your app. The next option is you, if I'm not mistaken, and you will need to test this, but you could just try deleting the delay completely. This means on the page load, it'll get the collection and set the data variable, and that's it. It doesn't keep doing it. So that will mean that users would have to constantly refresh the page. There are other options to post to your database as well if they needed to authenticate. They could use API tools if they really wanted to. Again, we're not covering security in this series, so make sure that you're setting that up yourself. But the idea here is find whatever method works best for you to truly optimize your application. I would recommend doing this for all of your pages. Otherwise, once you start getting to the tens or hundreds of users, you're going to need to go to a pay-as-you-go pricing, which will very quickly start getting expensive. And you could wake up one day with $1,000+ bill. So, again, manage that. Try to set up limits in Firebase if it's possible. That way you never hit above a certain amount in payments, or stay on a free plan as long as you can. But again, just be cognizant of how quickly this can get to be expensive. Now, the last thing we're going to cover for performance is just looking at the flow of your app. What I mean by that is this app is very read intensive. So there are more efficient ways to do what I have done. One option, for example, is if we go to the 1 to 5 ratings page. When this page loads, you'll see right here that nothing is actually happening. But if we were to choose a different page in the app, for example, if we go to the Make a Post page, when this page loads, you'll see a lot of activity. For example, we're doing a Get Current User, and then we're doing a Get Record, which is a read request. At least one, if I'm not mistaken. Then when we go to Submit, you'll see we're doing all of these checks. And then we're doing at least three write requests right here. So you need to sit here and think, are there any pages on this app where when the page loads, it does a Get Record, and then when we click a button, it also does a Get Record? Now, you could think that there are times where that's needed if you're worried about a page timing out or someone updating data. So you need to think through the use cases. In a lot of cases, it may be useful to do the final Get Record request before someone clicks Submit. That way they're getting the data and submitting the most updated data. But if you're expecting the app not to have regular updates, you may be able to do a single update on page load. Now, again, in this application, we do a lot of GET requests when the pages load so that we can load the data in the page. And then in some cases, it may be good to have a second GET request on the Submit button, again, so we're getting and submitting the data in a correct or good fashion. So the way that I've created this app is not necessarily the best way to build it. I think there is plenty of room for optimizations. However, bear in mind that there are certain things that will depend on other things. For example, if you want to have your chat board set up, I have it set up to pull from the user account page separate from the chat board, just to try to avoid tying information together. So there are certain reasons the way the app is built the way that it is. All in all, I hope you enjoyed this series. The next video is going to be the final video in the series. If you have any questions, drop them in the comment box below, and I'll see you all in the next video.